The envelope was old, the handwriting was shaky, and inside was a goodbye no one had ever read. Welcome to this powerful story of memory, loss, and the echo of a voice nearly forgotten. Before we begin, drop a comment below and tell us, where are you watching from today? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, hit subscribe and help us carry their voices forward. Now, let's begin. November sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting pale stripes across the cluttered kitchen counter. Lydia Marks, 42, half-dressed in pajama pants and a faded hoodie, stood over the mail pile like a sleepy warrior assessing the battlefield. Another stack of flyers, bills, and wrong addresses. She rolled her eyes. Third one this week. Her house, number 1731 on Maple Drive, had for years been caught in a bureaucratic postal vortex. The house next door, 1371, a typo away from chaos. Lydia had long given up on reporting it. Most of the time, she just tossed the stray letters in the trash. She grabbed one now, plain white envelope, yellowed at the edges, barely holding together. The stamp had faded, and the top left corner was almost torn off. The return address was smudged, but still there. PFC Jonathan Hale, 3rd Infantry, FOB Red Sand, Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. Lydia blinked. What? She flipped the envelope over. No recipient address, no barcode, no tracking number, just a single line written in careful cursive. To whoever finds this, please deliver it. She stood still for a moment, cold creeping up her spine. This wasn't a recent letter. The stamp was from 1986. Postmarked, November 23rd, exactly one day before Thanksgiving, 38 years ago. Lydia's fingers trembled slightly as she slid her nail under the flap and opened it. Inside was a single folded sheet of lined paper, yellowed but intact. The ink had bled slightly from age, but the words were still legible. The handwriting, shaky, desperate, belonged to someone who didn't expect to get another chance. Dear Dad, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if I'll ever come home. They moved us last night. Some of us are staying behind. They picked me. Don't be angry, I volunteered. Lydia sat down slowly, heart pounding louder than the ticking of the old kitchen clock. The letter went on, 3 paragraphs, then 4. Descriptions of desert wind, of men laughing quietly in the dark. A mention of someone named Callahan, who hadn't eaten in 2 days. And at the end, I buried the photo of Mom in the sand behind the generator. I couldn't carry it anymore. But I remember every line of her face. If someone finds this, tell her I didn't forget, not even once. Love always, Jonathan. Lydia held the paper in both hands, but her eyes were fixed on the kitchen window, as if she were staring straight into the desert. She had no idea who Jonathan Hale was, but now she couldn't stop wondering. Why had this letter ended up in her mailbox? Why now, almost 4 decades later? And how many others like it were never opened? The heater clicked on with a mechanical sigh. Lydia folded the letter carefully, smoothed the envelope, and set it on the counter like something sacred. This wasn't junk mail. It was a message from a ghost. And ghosts don't write unless they want to be found. Lydia spent the next hour just staring at the envelope, not reading, not analyzing, just holding it, like it was something alive. Eventually, she wrapped the letter in a plastic sleeve, the kind she used for storing her dad's old baseball cards, and placed it on her bookshelf, between the things they carried and a cracked copy of The Catcher in the Rye. Then she poured herself coffee she forgot to drink. That night, the letter followed her in dreams. Sand, helicopters, static on a radio. A name whispered over and over. Jonathan. She woke up at 3:17 a.m., sat up and muttered, "Why me?" She wasn't anyone special, just Lydia Marks. Divorced, no kids, real estate assistant. Favorite holiday, Halloween. Worst holiday, Thanksgiving. Every year it reminded her how empty her house felt when the table stayed set for one. She didn't believe in fate, but the letter made her question that. By mid-morning, she was back at the kitchen table, laptop open, Googling Jonathan Hale Kandahar, missing. 3rd Infantry, Afghanistan, 1986. FOB Red Sand Veterans. Results came in bursts. Some articles, some declassified documents, some forums for veterans and historians. One entry from a blog caught her eye. FOB Red Sand was temporary, undocumented. No formal records exist post-1987. Most soldiers reassigned or KIA. Hale Jonathan, PFC, listed MIA after Operation Scorpion. No photo, no known family, no obituary. She opened Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn, searching Jonathan Hale. Too many. None military, none 60-something. It was like the man had disappeared off the map. Then she thought about the return address again. The base no longer existed, but maybe someone remembered it. She posted in a veterans forum anonymously. Found a letter from 1986, PFC Jonathan Hale. Anyone know the name? She expected silence, but an hour later someone replied. He was real. I served under Lieutenant Callahan. Jonathan was his radio man. We never saw him again after that night. Lydia froze. Lieutenant Callahan, the name in the letter. She typed quickly. Did anyone ever hear what happened to him? Minutes later. We think he volunteered to stay behind. It wasn't ordered. He just stayed. Last we heard, he handed off his radio and disappeared. She reread the last line in the message. Disappeared. That night, the wind howled outside her window, and Lydia sat alone on the couch, watching old war documentaries on mute. Her phone buzzed. A private message. Hey, my name's Rob. I served at Red Sand. I think I remember Hale. There was something weird about his file. You got time to talk? Her hands shook slightly as she typed, Yes, please. They scheduled a call for noon the next day. Lydia didn't sleep. At 11:58, she sat at her desk, headphones in, the letter beside her like a silent witness. Rob's voice came in clear but slow, deep with the weight of memory. I was 21. We didn't know what we were doing half the time. But Hale, he wasn't like the rest of us. Quiet, smart, obsessed with radios. Guy could tap into foreign signals with paper clips. He was weirdly calm under fire, spooky calm. Last night we saw him. The desert was blowing sideways, a sandstorm. Callahan gave the order to pull back. Hale looked at him and said, If I go, you won't hear them. We didn't know what he meant. We thought he snapped. We pulled out. He didn't. Lydia waited. You never saw him again? No, but 2 months later a patrol survived an ambush, enemy mines. Their route had been cleared just days earlier. Radio signals were distorted, but someone warned them. The guy described a voice over the radio, said it was calm, precise, and ended transmission with, Tell my dad I didn't forget. Lydia nearly dropped the phone. Rob's voice trembled. He shouldn't have been alive, but someone had cleared that field, with a radio. What if, Lydia asked softly, he lived longer than anyone thought? A long pause. Then Rob said, Then someone's been waiting to hear from him for 38 years. They ended the call in silence. Lydia stared at the letter again. Not just a message, a marker, a signal still transmitting across time. She looked at the envelope one last time, then opened a fresh manila folder and began writing, recipient unknown, but message received. 3 days later, the letter wasn't just a curiosity, it was a mission. Lydia had created a makeshift timeline across her dining table, a chain of yellow sticky notes connecting fragments of the past. November 23, 1986. Letter dated. December 2, 1986. Red Sand decommissioned. 1987. Hale listed as MIA. 2024. Letter appears at her door. It didn't make sense, not logically, not even logistically. She had ruled out pranks, dismissed coincidence, and now sat staring at a list of names, men who had served at Red Sand. Most were either dead, untraceable, or old enough to avoid social media like the plague. But one name blinked back at her from a dusty digital archive of stars and stripes. Lieutenant Frank Callahan, the officer Hale had mentioned in the letter, the one Rob remembered. Still alive, age 78, living in a care home in Prescott, Arizona. She made the call. The receptionist hesitated, then agreed to pass a message. An hour later, Lydia's phone rang. "Miss Marks," a raspy voice said, "you have a letter?" Her breath caught. "Yes, sir, from Jonathan Hale. It was addressed to no one." Silence stretched across the line. "I've waited 38 years for someone to say that name," Callahan finally said. "You need to come here. I'll explain everything." 2 days later, Lydia flew to Arizona. The care home was quiet, sun-bathed, overlooking dry hills that mimicked the dunes of distant deserts. Inside, Lieutenant Callahan sat in a chair by the window, eyes like glass marbles, sharp despite the years. He didn't shake her hand. He didn't offer a smile. He only said, "Do you believe in listening to ghosts?" Lydia took the letter from her bag and placed it in his hands. Callahan didn't cry, but something in his jaw tensed as he read. When he reached the final line, "Tell her I didn't forget," he let out a breath like he'd been holding it for 4 decades. "I never got to tell his family," he whispered. "We lied. The brass said to list him MIA, but I knew what he did. He stayed, monitored enemy comms, delayed their advance, saved our men, alone." "Why lie?" Lydia asked gently. Callahan looked out the window. "Because heroes who don't come home, they complicate paperwork." He handed the letter back. "I have something for you," he said. "Wait here." 10 minutes passed. When he returned, he held a sealed box. He placed it on the table. Inside, a small leather-bound field notebook, a photo of 5 young soldiers in front of a radio shack, a dog tag, Hale JP, and a cassette tape. Lydia stared. "This came to me anonymously in 1987, Callahan said. "No sender, just this note. He made it count. The voice on the tape is his." Lydia's heart thudded. "You never went public with it?" Callahan shook his head. "By then it was too late. No one cared. The war was changing. New names, new enemies. Hale got buried under headlines." That night, in her hotel room, Lydia borrowed a portable tape player from the front desk and pressed play. Static, then breathing, then a voice, calm, measured. "If you're hearing this, I didn't make it out. That's okay. I made it count. Please, if you find the letter, tell her I remembered. Every year, every day, Thanksgiving was always her favorite." Then silence. And one more whisper. "Tell her I heard the song, the one she used to hum. I heard it in the wind." Lydia shut off the tape, her hands shaking. She looked again at the envelope. She now believed it didn't arrive late. It arrived right on time. But the question remained, who sent it? Not the military, not Callahan, not Hale. Someone else had delivered the letter, and whoever it was, they were watching. The car was parked across the street again. Lydia noticed it as soon as she stepped out of her apartment building. Same make, same dent above the front left wheel, same faded parking permit in the window. A beat-up silver Ford Taurus, idling, empty, or maybe not. She walked slowly past it, pretending to fumble with her phone. As she glanced through the window, she caught a blur of movement, a figure shifting in the front seat. Someone ducked just out of sight. She didn't stop. She didn't look back. Inside, she double-locked the door and sat down hard on the couch, heart pounding. She reached for the notebook Callahan had given her. The leather cover was cracked and dry, the pages inside filled with symbols and shorthand that meant nothing to her. Frequencies, grid coordinates, codes. But on the final page, something different. A sketch. A rough drawing of a young woman sitting in front of a mailbox. Lydia froze. It wasn't a good sketch, quick lines, no face. But the silhouette, the hair, the mailbox, it was her. Her house. She flipped back through the pages. In the margin, she found more strange notes. May 4th. She hasn't opened it yet. June 2. Window open. She cried. August 19. She kept it. Lydia covered her mouth with her hand. Someone had been watching her for months, years maybe, and they'd had the notebook. Which meant they had the letter before she did. But why wait? That night, unable to sleep, she opened her laptop and logged back into the Veterans Forum. She posted a new message, simple but pointed. Who delivered Jonathan Hale's letter to my door? No reply. She refreshed again. Nothing. She was about to close the tab when a private message popped up. I've been waiting for you to ask. You're not the only one who received something. The user's name was Signal Left 47. No profile picture, no location. Lydia typed, "What did you receive?" The reply came instantly. Dog tag, wrapped in newspaper, no return address. Same name, J.P. Hale. Arrived Thanksgiving morning, 2021. Lydia's pulse spiked. She typed again, "Where are you?" "Newark, New Jersey." "We should talk. Meet?" She hesitated. "Was this real? Was it safe?" She typed back, "Tomorrow, noon, Union Square." The next day, she drove 5 hours in near silence, her mind replaying the tape, the sketch, the unanswered questions. She arrived at Union Square Park just before noon. Cold wind, street vendors, joggers, no sign of Signal Left 47. Then a man approached, mid-30s, military posture, clean-shaven, dressed too plainly. "You Lydia?" he asked. She nodded. He handed her a small box, unwrapped. Inside, a dog tag. Same exact markings. Hale J.P., 3rd Infer, and something else. A photo, black and white, grainy, of 2 young soldiers. One was Jonathan, the other, Lydia. Not possible. But there she was, same face, same eyes, standing beside a man who hadn't been seen since 1986. "I think," the man said quietly, "you were meant to find him." Lydia looked up, shaking. "Who are you?" He paused, "The one who made sure the message got through." Before she could say anything else, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Lydia drove through the night, headlights carving tunnels through the darkness, heart pounding louder than the engine. The box he gave her sat in the passenger seat, untouched, as if opening it might trigger something irreversible. By dawn, she pulled into a rest stop off I-78, her hands shaking as she finally reached for the contents. The photo, the impossible photo, was now bent from her grip. 2 figures stood arm in arm, grinning beneath a tattered flag. Jonathan Hale was unmistakable, but the other figure, the one that looked exactly like her, made no sense. Same face, same nose, same half-smile, same necklace. Her fingers flew to her neck. She'd worn the pendant since she was 12. Her mother told her it was her grandmother's, a gift from a soldier who'd never come home, but she had never known more than that. Until now. She turned the photo over. On the back, scribbled in faint pencil, 1943, Sicily. L. Marks and Hale. She whispered it aloud. L. Marks. Her breath caught. She stared again at the woman in the photo. Not her grandmother. But the resemblance was chilling. Lydia was staring at her own ghost, a memory wearing her face, standing beside the man whose letter now sat folded in her bag. Back on the road, she called her mother. "Mom, who gave Grandma the necklace?" Her mother was quiet on the other end. "She never told you?" "No. She just said it came from a soldier she loved." Another pause. Then, "His name was Jonathan." Lydia nearly swerved off the road. "You knew him?" "I knew the name. Grandma kept his picture in her Bible, said he died in the war, but I never saw proof, just stories." "Mom, he didn't die in the war. He made it to 1986, maybe longer." Silence. Then her mother whispered, "I always thought," the way she cried every Thanksgiving, like she was listening for someone who never knocked. Lydia ended the call and pulled over. She opened the notebook again, at the very back one last page. "If she's reading this, tell her I found her again. I didn't forget the melody or the storm or the letter under the window. I'll find her again." It wasn't a journal. It was a loop. Jonathan Hale had written it for Lydia, but he hadn't known about her. He'd written it for her grandmother, and somehow it still found its way home. She opened the envelope again. Tucked inside now, how had she missed it before? A faded square of paper folded 3 times over. Inside, a hand-drawn map, Not of Kandahar, not of any battlefield, but of a field in Pennsylvania. Coordinates, a hand-drawn path, a date. November 23rd, 11 a.m. That was tomorrow. Lydia stared at it. After 38 years, he had left a final destination, and someone had made sure she got the map just in time. The field was quiet. Grass swayed gently beneath a flat gray sky. The kind of morning that felt suspended between memory and dream. Lydia stood at the edge of the path, one boot resting on the cracked concrete foundation of what once might have been a barn. No buildings remained, just the open air and a faint outline in the dirt where time had pressed down. She checked the coordinates again. Exact match. It was November 23rd, 11 a.m. She was exactly where the map led. Nothing happened. No figure emerging from the mist, no whisper from the trees. Just the wind, the silence, and a sense of waiting. She knelt and touched the earth. Something sharp beneath the soil. Metal. She dug gently, bare hands parting the cold dirt until her fingers closed around a rusted tin box. Heavy, sealed with a string, tied like a gift. She sat on the ground and opened it. Inside, a bundle of aged photographs. Some her grandmother, others of soldiers laughing beside worn tents. A harmonica, rusted but intact. A cassette labeled Final Broadcast. A note folded once with a single sentence. If the melody reached you, it means I found you. Lydia blinked back tears. She reached for her phone and played the old recording again, the one from the first cassette. The voice at the end, that last whisper. Tell her I heard the song. She looked at the harmonica in her hand. It had been hers, her grandmother's. She remembered it from childhood. It had vanished after her grandmother's funeral. Now it sat in her palm, cold and silent, after crossing decades and deserts. Someone had carried it, preserved it. Someone had kept the melody alive. She played the tape marked Final Broadcast. Static. Then a voice, older now, slower, tired but calm. I tried every signal, every frequency. I watched. I waited. Maybe I missed her by a year, maybe a mile. But I saw her granddaughter. The same smile, same fire. I knew then I hadn't waited for nothing. If she finds this, tell her, home found me too. Then, nothing. Just wind. Lydia sat there for a long time, until the sun broke through the clouds, touching the grass with pale light. She buried the box again, resealing it carefully, not to hide it, to leave it where it belonged. A message, not just from a man, but from time itself, from love that outlasted names, wars, and bloodlines. As she walked back toward the road, a car passed by slowly, an old Ford Toy.